What would you do if the person you loved most demanded you prove your worth with a signature? Have you ever been in a room where you felt like you didn't belong? Where every glance felt like judgment? Where the weight of everyone's expectations pressed down on your shoulders like a 1,000-pound burden? Well, let me tell you about Amara Sinclair, a woman who thought she knew exactly who she was, until one document changed everything. There she stood, in the most expensive ballroom in New York City, surrounded by crystal chandeliers worth more than most people's homes, holding a piece of paper that was about to destroy her world. The engagement party of the century was swirling around her, champagne glasses clinking, designer gowns rustling, million-dollar conversations floating through the air. But Amara, she was frozen, staring at a prenuptial agreement that had just revealed the most shocking truth of her life. You see, 3 months earlier, this brilliant, dignified woman had fallen head over heels for Lucien Devereaux, a billionaire whose smile could melt glaciers and whose touch set her soul on fire. Their love story was the kind that made fairy tales jealous. Late-night conversations that lasted until sunrise, stolen kisses in empty elevators, passionate encounters that left them both breathless and craving more. But there was one problem, one massive, suffocating problem. His mother, Vivienne Devereaux, a woman colder than winter in Alaska and twice as unforgiving. Vivienne took one look at Amara and decided she wasn't good enough, not rich enough, not connected enough, not enough, period. So she did what powerful people do when they want to maintain control. She demanded humiliation wrapped in legal jargon. She forced Amara to sign a prenup that basically said, "We don't trust you. We don't believe your love is real, and we're going to make sure you walk away with nothing if this falls apart." And Amara, God bless her heart, she signed it, because when you love someone that deeply, you'll swallow your pride and sign your dignity away just to prove that your feelings are genuine. But here's where the story gets absolutely wild. What if I told you that the woman they tried to humble was hiding a secret that would shatter everything they thought they knew? What if the prenup they forced her to sign was actually protecting the wrong fortune? Because while Vivienne Devereaux was busy playing puppet master, treating Amara like some gold-digging nobody who needed to be put in her place, she had no idea, absolutely no idea, that she was staring directly into the face of one of the wealthiest women in America, a billionaire's daughter who had been hidden from the world her entire life. If you've ever felt underestimated, hit that like button, because this story is going to change everything you think you know about power. Because what happened next? When the truth came out at that engagement party, it didn't just shock everyone in that ballroom. It brought the mighty Devereaux family to their knees and turned the entire social hierarchy of New York City completely upside down. Trust me, you've never heard a revenge story quite like this one. But let me take you back to where it all began. 3 months before that shocking revelation, the Orion Charity Gala, where Manhattan's elite gathered to write tax-deductible checks while sipping champagne that cost more per bottle than most people's monthly rent. The Plaza Hotel's grand ballroom was transformed into a cold playground for the ultra-wealthy. 12-foot floor arrangements towered over tables draped in Italian silk. A string quartet played Mozart, while servers glided to the crowd carrying golden trays of delicacies most people couldn't pronounce. Amara Sinclair stepped through those massive oak doors at exactly 7:47 p.m., and every conversation in her vicinity seemed to pause for just a heartbeat. She wore a midnight black dress that hugged every curve like it was custom-made for her body, which it was, though she'd saved for 6 months to afford it. Her hair was swept into an elegant updo that showcased a graceful line of her neck, and her makeup was flawless, the kind of perfection that took 2 hours to achieve but looked effortless. Breathe. Amara, you belong here. You've worked twice as hard as anyone in this room. But her internal confidence coach was fighting a losing battle against the voice of doubt that whispered, "Look around. Diamond necklaces worth more than your apartment. Watches that cost more than your car. These people can smell outsiders from a mile away." She grabbed a glass of champagne from a passing server, not because she wanted it, but because holding something gave her hand something to do besides shake. Nervous? A smooth voice asked from behind her. Amara turned, and her breath caught in her throat. The man standing there was tall, with dark hair that looked perfectly tousled, and eyes the color of storm clouds. His tuxedo fit him like a second skin, and when he smiled, dimples appeared that made her forget her own name for a solid 3 seconds. Not nervous, she lied, lifting her chin with practiced defiance. Just observing. Lucien Devereaux, though she didn't know his name yet, laughed, and the sound sent warmth flooding through her chest. Observing what exactly? How many people here actually care about the charity we're supposedly supporting tonight, versus how many are just here to be seen? Bold Amara, maybe too bold, but instead of being offended, his smile widened. And what's your assessment so far? She gestured subtly toward a group of women near the silent auction table. The blonde in the red dress just bid $20,000 on a spa weekend in Napa. She hasn't looked at the description once. She's too busy making sure the photographers got her good side. Lucien followed her gaze, then looked back at her with genuine interest. Impressive. What else? The man in the navy suit by the bar? He's been nursing the same drink for 45 minutes while working the room. Classic power player. Here for networking, not charity. Why am I showing off? This is exactly the kind of attention I should be avoiding. But there was something about this man that made her want to drop her guard. Something in the way he looked at her. Not like she was a beautiful decoration, but like she was a puzzle worth solving. And me? Lucien asked, stepping closer. What's your read on me? Amara studied his face, noting the genuine curiosity in his eyes, the way he stood, confident but not arrogant, powerful but not intimidating. You're different. You actually asked the servers about the charity. When you walked in, you've been watching people too, but not judging them. You're curious. Lucien Devereaux, he said, extending his hand. Devereaux, why does that name sound familiar? Amara Sinclair, she replied, shaking his hand. The moment their skin touched, electricity shot up her arm. Would you like to get some air? The terrace is quieter. This is dangerous. Rich, handsome, and interested. That a combination that never ends well for women like me. But she heard herself saying, I'd like that. As they moved toward the terrace, Amara felt eyes following them. She glanced back and caught sight of an elegant older woman in emerald green, watching their every move with the intensity of a hawk tracking prey. Vivian Devereaux had been observing the gala from her strategic position near the main entrance, cataloging every guest, every interaction, every potential threat to her family's carefully constructed world. She knew every woman in this room, their backgrounds, their net worth, their marriage prospects. But this one was different. This one she'd never seen before. Beautiful, yes. Intelligent, obviously. But who is she? Where did she come from? And why is my son looking at her like she's the only person in the room? Vivian's fingers tightened around her champagne flute as she watched Lucien guide this mysterious woman toward the terrace. In 30 years of social climbing and strategic positioning, she'd learned to spot trouble from across a crowded room. And everything about Amara Sinclair screamed trouble. 2 weeks later, Amara received an invitation that made her blood run cold. Mrs. Vivian Devereaux requests the pleasure of your company for afternoon tea. The Devereaux private suite, the St. Regis, 3 p.m. sharp. She'd been seeing Lucien almost every day since the gala. Stolen lunches between his board meetings, late-night dinners at hidden restaurants where paparazzi couldn't find him, quiet moments in his penthouse where the rest of the world seemed to disappear. He'd been nothing but genuine, nothing but kind. But his mother? That was uncharted territory. This is it, the test. Every relationship has one. The St. Regis suite was a monument to old money. The kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself because it had been there for generations. Persian rugs that belonged in museums. Furniture that had probably witnessed the signing of historical documents. And portraits, dozens of them, Stern-faced Devereaux ancestors staring down from gilded frames like disapproving judges. Vivian sat behind an antique mahogany desk, her silver hair pulled back in a perfect chignon, her posture so rigid it could have been carved from marble. She didn't stand when Amara entered, didn't smile, didn't offer tea. "Sit," she commanded, gesturing to the chair across from her. Amara remained standing. "Mrs. Devereaux, it's a pleasure to..." "Cut the pleasantries. We both know why you're here." "Actually, I have no idea why I'm here, but okay." Vivian opened a leather folder and slid a thick document across the desk. "This is a prenuptial agreement. Sign it." Amara blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "Don't play stupid. It doesn't suit you." Vivian's voice was ice-cold precision. "You've been seeing my son for 2 weeks. You think I haven't noticed? You think I don't know exactly what you're doing?" "Mrs. Devereaux, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding is if you think you can waltz into my family and take what doesn't belong to you." Vivian stood, her heels clicking against the marble floor as she walked around the desk. "I've seen your type before. Beautiful, charming, just poor enough to be hungry. You smell opportunity and you circle like a vulture." Each word hit Amara like a physical blow. "That's not." 6 months from now, when the novelty wears off and Lucien realizes what you really are, you'll try to take half of everything he's worked for. This document ensures that won't happen. Amara's hands trembled as she picked up the contract. The legal jargon blurred together, but the message was crystal clear. You get nothing. You are nothing. You will always be nothing. You want me to sign away my rights to a man I've been dating for 2 weeks? I want you to prove that your feelings are genuine. If you truly love my son, this should be easy. Unless, of course, you have other motivations. The room felt like it was closing in. Those ancestral portraits seemed to lean closer, their painted eyes boring into her soul. You don't belong here. You never did. You never will. And if I refuse? Vivian's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. Then I'll make sure Lucien understands exactly what kind of woman you really are. I'll have my investigators dig into every corner of your life, your family, your finances, your past relationships, every embarrassing detail, every mistake, every moment of desperation. And when they're finished, there won't be enough left of your reputation to fill a thimble. She's serious. She'll destroy me. But if you sign this, we can all move forward as civilized people. You can continue seeing Lucien. You can attend family functions. You can play the perfect girlfriend. You just can't profit from it. Amara stared at the document, her vision blurring with unshed tears. Every instinct screamed at her to throw the papers in Vivian's face and walk out. But then she thought about Lucien, the way he looked at her like she was the most fascinating person in the world, the way he listened to her opinions like they mattered, the way he made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she could have something beautiful. If I don't sign this, I lose him. If I do sign it, I lose my dignity. But maybe losing my dignity is worth keeping him. Her hand shook as she reached for the pen. "Smart girl," Vivian murmured. The pen felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Every letter of her name was a small death. Death of her pride, death of her self-respect, death of the woman who had fought tooth and nail for every scrap of success in her life. Amara Sinclair. The ink was still wet when Vivian snatched the document away. "Welcome to the family, dear. I do hope you'll be comfortable here." As Amara walked out of that suite, her legs felt like jelly. She'd given away her power, her protection, her dignity. All for a man she'd known for 2 weeks. But what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the woman who had just signed away her rights to the Devereaux fortune was carrying a secret that would make that prenup look like monopoly money. Drop a comment if you think Amara should have walked away right then and there, because what was coming next would change everything. That night, Amara stood in her apartment bathroom, staring at her reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back at her seemed smaller somehow, diminished. The weight of what she'd done, what she'd signed away, pressed down on her chest like a stone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Lucien. "Dinner at my place? I have something to show you." I can't face him. Not after what I just did. Not after his mother turned me into a contract negotiation. But her fingers typed back. "I'll be there in an hour." Because despite everything, despite the humiliation and the legal document that now defined her worth, she needed to see him, needed to remember why she'd made that choice. Lucien's penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a building that touched the clouds. When the elevator doors opened, she found him in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, hands covered in flour. "You're cooking?" she asked, and for the first time in hours, she almost smiled. "Attempting to cook," he corrected, holding up what looked like the remains of pasta dough. "I want to make something special for you, but I think I've just created abstract art." He wanted to make something special. For me, the contrast hit her like a physical blow. His mother had spent an hour explaining why Amara wasn't worthy of basic respect, while he was here, covered in flour, trying to create something beautiful just to make her happy. "Here," she said, moving to stand beside him. "Let me help." Their hands touched as she guided his fingers through the dough, and electricity shot up her arm. She looked up to find him watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Amara," he said quietly, "what's wrong? You seem different tonight." Tell him what his mother did. Tell him about the prenup. But she couldn't. Not yet. Not when he was looking at her like she was the most precious thing in his world. "I'm fine," she lied, stepping closer. "Just kiss me." He didn't need to be asked twice. His lips found hers, and suddenly nothing else mattered. Not the prenup, not his mother's threats, not the impossible situation she'd walked into. There was only this. The way he held her like she was something rare and fragile, the way he tasted like wine and possibility. The kiss deepened, and she felt herself melting against him. His hands tangled in her hair, and she pressed closer, desperate to lose herself in the feeling of being wanted, being cherished, being loved. "Amara," he whispered against her lips, her name a prayer on his tongue. She pulled back just enough to look into his eyes, those storm cloud eyes that had captivated her from the first moment. "I need you to know something," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What?" "Whatever happens, whatever anyone says about me or why I'm here, this is real. What I feel for you is real." His brow furrowed. "Why would anyone say anything about why you're here? Because your mother thinks I'm a gold digger. Because she made me sign a document that proves I'm not worthy of you. Because everything about this is wrong, except for how right it feels." Instead of answering, she kissed him again, pouring everything she couldn't say into the connection between them. He lifted her onto the marble counter, his hands spanning her waist, and she wrapped her legs around him, drawing him closer. "I love you," he said against her throat, and the words sent fire racing through her veins. "I love you too," she whispered back, and meant it with every fiber of her being. They made love that night with a desperation that neither of them fully understood. In the soft glow of the city lights filtering through floor-to-ceiling windows, they discovered each other with tender urgency. Every touch was a promise. Every kiss a declaration of war against the forces trying to tear them apart. When he traced the curve of her spine with gentle fingers, she arched into him, breathing his name like a sacred word. When she pressed her lips to the hollow of his throat, he groaned and pulled her closer, as if he could absorb her into his very soul. They moved together in perfect harmony. Two people who had found something rare and precious in a world that seemed determined to destroy it. The marble counter became their altar, the city lights their witnesses, and their joined bodies the only truth that mattered. Afterward, they lay tangled together on his massive bed, her head on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "Promise me something," she said into the darkness. "Anything. Promise me that no matter what happens, you'll remember this. Remember how we feel right now." He tilted her chin up to look at him. "Why does it sound like you're saying goodbye?" "Because I might have to. Because your mother is going to do everything in her power to destroy this. Because I don't know if love is enough to survive what's coming. I'm not going anywhere, she said instead, and prayed it was true. But promises, as Amara was about to learn, were fragile things. 3 weeks after that night in Lucien's penthouse, the first call came at 2:47 a.m. Amara jolted awake, her heart pounding as her phone buzzed against the nightstand. A known number. She almost let it go to voicemail, but something, instinct maybe, made her answer. Hello. Silence. Then a woman's voice, barely above a whisper. They're looking for you. The line went dead. Wrong number. Has to be. But her hands were shaking as she set the phone down. She'd been having strange dreams lately. Fragments of memories that felt too vivid to be dreams, but too impossible to be real. A mansion with white columns. A woman with kind eyes, singing lullabies. A man in an expensive suit who smelled like cedar and regret. The second call came 4 days later. Same time, same voice. The lawyers are asking questions. About Chicago. About the hospital. What hospital? What lawyers? I've never even been to Chicago. This time, Amara tried to speak. Who is this? What do you want? But the caller had already hung up. She couldn't tell Lucien. How could she explain that someone was calling her about things that made no sense? About places she'd never been and people she'd never met? He'd think she was losing her mind. Maybe she was. The third call changed everything. They know about the birth certificate. The real one. The real one? What the hell does that mean? Listen to me carefully. The voice continued, urgent now. Meet me at Cafe Luna on 82nd Street. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Come alone. And whatever you do, don't trust anyone named Kincaid. Kincaid. Why does that name sound familiar? Amara barely slept that night. She kept turning the calls over in her mind, trying to make sense of them. Birth certificate. Hospital. Chicago. Lawyers. This is insane. I'm going to meet some random stranger because of anonymous phone calls about things that don't exist. But she went anyway. Cafe Luna was a tiny place wedged between a laundromat and a bookstore, the kind of place tourists never found, and locals pretended not to notice. Amara sat in the corner booth, nursing a cup of coffee that had gone cold 20 minutes ago, when a woman slid into the seat across from her. She was about 40, with tired eyes and nervous hands that couldn't stop moving. Amara? God, you look just like her. Just like who? And who are you? My name is Carmen Rodriguez. I used to work for your mother. My mother died when I was 3. Car accident. I barely remember her. I think you have me confused with someone else, Amara said, starting to stand. Sit down. Carmen's voice was sharp with urgency. Your mother didn't die in a car accident. She died in a private hospital in Chicago when you were 3 years old. Pancreatic cancer. I was her nurse for the last 6 months of her life. The cafe seemed to tilt around Amara. That's impossible. She made me promise to find you if anything ever happened. If anyone ever came looking. She said there were people who would try to hide the truth about who you are. Who I am. I know who I am. I'm Amara Sinclair. I grew up in foster care. I worked my way through college. I'm nobody special. Your real name isn't Amara Sinclair, Carmen continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. It's Amara Blackwood. And your mother was Elena Blackwood. The name hit Amara like a physical blow. She'd heard it before, whispered in boardrooms, mentioned in financial magazines, spoken with a mixture of respect and fear by people who move in circles she'd never dreamed of accessing. Elena Blackwood, the mysterious billionaire who'd built an empire and then vanished from public view. That's impossible, Amara repeated, but her voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. Carmen reached into her purse and pulled out a small envelope. She left this for you. Said if I ever found you, I should give it to you and tell you to be careful who you trust. Amara's hands trembled as she took the envelope. Her name was written on the front in elegant script, Not Amara Sinclair, but Amara Blackwood. There's something else, Carmen said, standing. The people who've been calling you, they're not the only ones looking. There are others, powerful people, and they're getting close. She walked away, leaving Amara alone with the envelope and 1,000 questions she was afraid to ask. Elena Blackwood, my mother, the woman who built a fortune that made the Devereaux Empire look like pocket change. Amara sat in her apartment for 3 hours, staring at the envelope like it might explode. The elegant script seemed to mock her, Amara Blackwood, a name that felt foreign on her tongue, but somehow familiar in her bones. Elena Blackwood, the woman who disappeared from the public eye 20 years ago, the woman who built a technology empire, worth more than most small countries, the woman who was supposedly my mother. She was still holding the unopened envelope when Lucien called. "I have news," he said, his voice bubbling with excitement. "My mother wants to throw us an engagement party this Saturday. She's invited half of New York." "Engagement party? We've been together for 2 months. Lucien, don't you think that's a bit fast?" "I know it seems sudden, but she's finally warming up to you. She said she wants to welcome you into the family properly. The same woman who made me sign a prenup is now throwing me a party? Something's wrong. Are you sure about this?" Amara asked. "Absolutely. She's even hired that event planner who did the Morrison wedding. No expense spared. No expense spared for the woman she thinks is a gold digger." "I'll see you Saturday," Amara said, but dread was already settling in her stomach like a stone. The Devereaux estate in Westchester was a monument to generational wealth, the kind of place where every room held more history than most museums. Saturday evening, it glittered with enough diamonds to power a small city and enough designer gowns to stock a department store. Amara wore deep emerald silk that made her skin glow, but she felt like she was wearing armor. The envelope, still unopened, was hidden in her purse like a loaded weapon. Just get through tonight. Smile, play the part, figure out the rest later. But the universe had other plans. She was standing near the champagne fountain, making small talk with some tech mogul's wife, when she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find a distinguished man in his 70s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, wearing a perfectly tailored suit. "Miss Blackwood," he said quietly. The champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the marble floor. Conversations around them stuttered to a halt. "I'm sorry," she stammered. "You had me confused with someone else." The man's eyes were kind but urgent. "My name is Charles Kincaid. I was your mother's attorney. And yours, technically, though you've never met me." "Kincaid." Carmen said not to trust anyone named Kincaid. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. "This arrived at my office yesterday, with instructions to give it to you if you ever appeared at a Devereaux family event." "Instructions from who?" "I don't understand." "Your mother was a very thorough woman. She left contingency plans for every possibility, including this one." He pressed the envelope into her hands. "Open it, now." Amara's hand shook as she tore open the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a DNA test dated 3 days ago. How is there a DNA test from 3 days ago when I never took one? But as she read the results, her world tilted on its axis. The test compared her DNA to a sample from Elena Blackwood's medical records. The results were conclusive, mother and daughter. 99.9% probability. "This is impossible," she whispered. "The hair from your brush. The one you left at the St. Regis suite when you met with Mrs. Devereaux." Kincaid's voice was gentle but firm. "We've been looking for you for 20 years. They tested my hair, without my permission, without my knowledge. Your mother didn't just disappear from public life." Kincaid continued. "She was dying. Pancreatic cancer. She spent her last years making sure you were safe, hidden, protected from the people who would have used you as a pawn in their power games. The room seemed to be spinning. Protected from who? From everyone who wanted to control the Blackwood fortune, including people who might have used you to get to it. People like the Devereaux. She created a false identity for you. Amara Sinclair, complete with birth certificate, school records, everything. She wanted you to have a normal life, away from the sharks who circle money like yours. Money like mine? Elena Blackwood was worth $47 billion when she died. She left everything to you. The words hit Amara like a physical blow. She staggered backward, her mind reeling. $47 billion. That's more than most countries. But I don't understand. Why now? Why are you telling me this now? Kincaid's face darkened. Because Mrs. Devereaux has been investigating your background. She knows the truth, and she's been planning to use it. Use it how? Across the room, as if summoned by their conversation, Vivian Devereaux appeared. She walked toward them with the predatory grace of a woman who had just realized she held all the cards. Well, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Mr. Kincaid, how lovely to see you again. Mrs. Devereaux, Kincaid replied coolly. I trust you've delivered the news to our dear Amara. Vivian's smile was razor sharp. About her rather substantial inheritance? She knew. She's known all along. You knew. Amara said, the words barely a whisper. Of course I knew. Did you think I'd let my son get involved with someone without doing a complete background check? I've known who you are since the night you met. Since the night we met. She's known for 2 months. The prenup, Amara said, understanding flooding through her like ice water. Was never about protecting my son from you, Vivian finished. It was about making sure you couldn't access your own money without my permission. You see, dear, when you signed that document, you didn't just sign away your rights to the Devereaux fortune. You signed away your rights to make any financial decisions without spousal consent. Spousal consent. That means, once you marry Lucien, I control everything. Your money, your decisions, your life. $47 billion, managed by the Devereaux Family Trust. The room erupted in shocked whispers as guests began to realize what they were witnessing. If this revelation shocked you, imagine how Amara felt. Smash that subscribe button, because we're just getting started. Because the woman who thought she was signing away her dignity had actually signed away the largest fortune in America. For exactly 30 seconds, the ballroom was silent, except for the sound of Amara's world crumbling. Then she started laughing. Not the broken laugh of a defeated woman, but the rich, full laugh of someone who had just realized they'd been playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. Oh, Vivian, she said, her voice carrying across the stunned crowd. You magnificent, brilliant fool. Vivian's triumphant smile faltered. I beg your pardon? You spent months investigating me, months planning this elaborate scheme. You manipulated your own son, orchestrated this entire engagement party, and you still managed to miss the most important detail. What is she doing? Lucien stepped forward, confusion written across his face. Amara, what's going on? She turned to him, her eyes blazing with fire he'd never seen before. Your mother thinks she's won. She thinks that prenup gives her control over my inheritance. Your inheritance? Lucien's voice was barely a whisper. $47 billion, darling. Give or take a few million. She turned back to Vivian. But here's what you didn't bother to research, Mrs. Devereaux. That prenup? It's not worth the paper it's printed on. The color drained from Vivian's face. That's impossible. I had the best lawyers. Review a contract for someone who doesn't exist. Amara's voice was deadly quiet now. Amara Sinclair signed that prenup. But Amara Sinclair isn't real. She's a legal fiction created by my mother to protect me. Mr. Kincaid stepped forward, his briefcase already open. The real Amara Blackwood never signed anything, which means, legally speaking, that prenup is invalid. The crowd was riveted. Phone cameras started appearing. But more importantly, Amara continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. Do you know what my mother's will actually says about marriage? Vivian's face had gone from pale to green. It says that if I'm married before the age of 30, my inheritance is placed in irrevocable trust, a trust that cannot be touched, manipulated, or controlled by anyone, not my husband, not my in-laws, not even me. She planned for this. Even from the grave, she was protecting me, which means, Amara turned to address the entire room, that marriage doesn't give anyone access to my money. It protects it from everyone. Lucian stared at her like he was seeing her for the first time. You're Elena Blackwood's daughter. I'm Elena Blackwood's daughter, who was raised in foster care because my mother loved me enough to hide me from people exactly like your mother. The crowd was buzzing now. Whispers turned to conversations. Phone calls were being made. Vivian rallied, her voice shaking with rage. You little... Careful, Amara interrupted, her voice like ice. Because I'm not done yet. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. You see, while you were busy investigating my fake identity, I was doing some research of my own about the Devereaux family finances, about your recent business ventures, about your son's company. Lucian's face went white. Amara, what are you talking about? Did you know, she said, addressing the room again, that Devereaux Industries has been hemorrhaging money for the past 3 years? That they've been propping up their stock price with loans they can't repay? That's confidential information, Vivian hissed. Not when you're about to go public with bankruptcy proceedings. It isn't. Amara's smile was razor sharp, which is why you needed my inheritance so badly. It wasn't about protecting your son from a gold digger. It was about using a gold digger to save your empire. The room erupted. Reporters who had been disguised as guests were suddenly very interested. Society wives were whispering behind their fans. You're lying, Vivian spat. Am I? Because I have the documents right here. Amara held up her phone. Bank statements, loan agreements, board meeting minutes from last Tuesday where you discussed using my inheritance to restructure your debt. Lucian looked like he might be sick. Mother, is this true? It's business, Lucian. You wouldn't understand. I understand perfectly. His voice was hollow. You used me. You used both of us. I saved you. Vivian's composure finally cracked. Do you think your precious company would survive without the Blackwood fortune? Do you think you'd still be the golden boy of Wall Street if people knew the truth? The truth about what? Amara asked, but she already knew that your boyfriend's company is 3 months away from bankruptcy. That without my plan, he'd lose everything. The silence was deafening. Lucian turned to Amara, his face stricken. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I know you didn't, she said softly. But the question is, what are you going to do now? He looked at his mother, then at her, then at the crowd of people watching their lives implode in real time. I'm going to choose you, he said, his voice growing stronger. I'm going to choose love over money. I'm going to choose truth over family manipulation, even if it means losing everything. Amara asked, I already lost everything when I found out my mother turned our relationship into a business transaction. Vivian's face was a mask of rage and desperation. You don't understand what you're throwing away. I understand perfectly. Lucian's voice was steady now. I'm throwing away a legacy built on lies and manipulation. I'm choosing to build something real instead. Amara looked around the room, at the shocked faces, the phone cameras, the society reporters frantically taking notes. Tomorrow, this would be front-page news. The secret heiress, the failed manipulation, the family empire crumbling. Ladies and gentlemen, she said, her voice carrying across the ballroom. Let me introduce myself properly. I'm Amara Blackwood. I'm worth $47 billion. And I'm about to use every penny of it to build something that actually matters. The crowd erupted in chaos. Questions were shouted from every direction. Camera flashes exploded like fireworks. But all Amara could see was Lucien, standing in the middle of the storm, looking at her like she was the only person in the room. "So," she said, taking his hand, "ready to start over? With you? I'm ready for anything." 6 months later, Amara stood on the stage of the Jacob K. Javits Convention Center, looking out at an audience of 5,000 people. The banner behind her read, Blackwood Foundation, empowering hidden potential. She wore a simple black dress, no diamonds, no designer labels, but she radiated more power than she ever had in that ballroom full of billionaires. "My name is Amara Blackwood," she began, her voice carrying across the vast space. "6 months ago, I thought I was nobody. I let someone else define my worth with a signature on a piece of paper." In the front row, Lucien sat with tears in his eyes. His company had been restructured, his mother had been removed from the board, and he was slowly rebuilding everything on his own terms. "But here's what I learned," Amara continued. "Your worth isn't determined by your bank account, your family name, or what other people think you deserve. Your worth is determined by what you choose to do with whatever power you have." The audience was silent, hanging on every word. "Today, we're launching the largest education initiative in American history. We're going to find every brilliant mind that's been overlooked, every potential leader that's been dismissed, every dreamer that's been told they don't belong." Applause thundered through the convention center, because the most dangerous thing in the world isn't someone who has nothing to lose. It's someone who discovers they had everything to gain all along. She looked down at Lucien, who mouthed, "I love you," back at her. "We're going to change the world," she said. "Not because we're rich, but because we refuse to let anyone else write our story." The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes. If Amara's journey inspired you to embrace your own power, hit that like button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe for more stories that will change how you see yourself and your potential. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to stay small.